Okay, so welcome to our last session. We were all looking forward for this session after all this input we get, all the ideas, all the questions, all the suggestions. So now we are trying to make it concrete and to see how to go out of our bubble and how to access also other communities and how to find maybe more questions or to find solutions or to come with action plans. We would like to have a to-do list after this session. So everybody is also welcome to write solutions. And we will also welcome our guests to talk first about suggested action plans. And then we will join them. So we will have a bigger circle and the audience is also invited to join. So we will have a session. I will start with introducing Sabine Gehm, who is an artistic director of the international festival Tanz Bremen, freelancer curator, dramaturg, and cultural manager, decades of work in various cities, projects, and constellations in the field of dance and performance. Sabine is a member of the board of directors of the Federal Association of Dance in Germany, the Dachverband Tanz Deutschland.
Yes.
And
I will also introduce Henrike Kollmar. Henrike has been working at NRW Landesbuero Tanz since 2017 as a competence center for the independent dance scene in North Rhine-Westphalia. Her focus is on the development of dance projects in the context of cultural education and the establishment of dance mediation in diverse fields. Previously, she worked as a dramaturg at the Tanzhaus NRW in Düsseldorf, curated festivals, initiated mediation concepts, and accompanied choreographies in their artistic process. I met Henrike in one of the exchange events, TanzAustausch, as I make also part of the steering team of the future Tanzvermittlungszentrum for Berlin. And it was an interesting event to start exploring how we can collaborate together, even if we are in different cities or in different institutions, or just conceptualizing for future institutions. The two other speakers we already saw before, Livia Patrizi and Christine Henniger. And as Mey said before, it's a chance to prepare our demands. Yeah, we have demands from yesterday, from Raphael. I have demands today. David, what are your demands?
Ich weiß es nicht, also es ist zu viel. Also.
So viel?
Ja, es ist zu viel. Also es gibt keine spezifische Demands, also es ist zu viel.
But we can at least collect ideas and come back to them after they finish in 1 hour.
Well,
maybe we have more demands and more from the physical audience, more from the Zoom people. So please, welcome to the stage.
you have the most difficult thing to do now.
Perhaps I just start because I would like to thank Nora, David, and Mey for this inspiring symposium. This I have to say. I think I can say it for all of us.
Yes.
So this is the first thing. And the second is that it is really a challenge which we have to do because we had so intense days and so much input and so much I would say critical questions, which of course we can't solve, and we can just perhaps think about some ideas. And I think it's really a challenge we have to do now.
Okay, maybe I want to add now, because I would like to directly link it to what Jana and Eric told us before. She was questioning about do we need regulations for a new cultural policy to encourage diversity. And I still don't have really action plans, but I think we are already in the process. I just wanted to maybe mention, because I think this is an interesting model, what the British Council set up. It's a kind of a guideline for a policy on diversity, equality and inclusion. And I would like to point on, or to focus on this so-called creative case for diversity they developed. This means that institutions who receives funding or who wants to have funding have to prove their commitment in the field of diversity. That means they have to show concretely through their work they present, or they invite, or they collect, how they deal with diversity. That can be in different ways. I think this is an interesting model to look at, and maybe this could be a kind of idea or inspiration for the cultural policy in Germany as well, to go ahead with developing diversity more in our field, in our country.
Thank you. Maybe it works now with diversity better than it with mediation, because this discussion about cultural institutions who get funding only if they also work with community projects or do something, you know, for the community. It's very old, and it's something which has been very refused here in Germany. The British model, you know, and it's not only British, like each choreographic center in France, there's 19. They also have to do community work to have the money. And so it was always like said, you know, all this mediation and community work, you cannot be forced into it. You have to want to do it, you know. So, and it's really not fair to constrict the institution to do mediation to get the money, you know. And now maybe with diversity, it's another moment. So maybe it's more acceptable, because I always thought that there's actually a model. It doesn't mean that every artist has to be forced to do this work, but it means that the institution who has power, who has money, I think they also have to give something back to society and to try to see how to, you know, open up, you know, just to this particular suggestion, which maybe now it works better with this topic.
Maybe I mean, I just talked so much, but I just continue. Sorry to you. Maybe the first fact we have to do is to accept that exclusion is a fact at the moment. We have to work with this, because if we don't say it again and say it again loud, often, thank you, it's nothing worse than the politics. I mean, we have to know everyday politics has to keep up with so many problems. We talked about already about the economic problems that we have on all levels, not just on the cultural level. We do talk about sustainability, climate change. So culture is just, it seems like one point, and to explain why this is important. And I know we are doing this since a lot of time, but I think we need to do it even more, and to have these round tables that were talked about earlier, to have these round tables for equity, to really bring people together. This was Livia's example, not only example, but really demand, I'd say. To have these round tables, but not only with the scene, but having here politicians. We talked to Nora in the beginning, because we said it's very important that we are sitting here, but actually who should sit here with us should be the politicians to talk to not let this conference go again just into vain and not like having happened at all. We need to have this talk with everyone, and we need to bring this communication and to let people know that this urge is there, that everyone needs the culture, that everyone needs, the communities need art, need dance in the end. And if we accept this exclusion moment, if we can bring the numbers, and I also read the Deutscher Kulturrat thing, and I laughed too. I liked it. What? We don't have Turkish employees? How is that happening? it's something that you can't imagine that people don't know. But it is like that. They don't know. They just sit in some kind of offices and they don't work like every day with artists, with people of the community, but they will work with other politicians. And mostly politicians are quite, at least on a federal level, quite homogeneous, I'd say.
I would like to add that people from the administration have to be involved as well. I think they are so important because it's not, yes, I agree, it's important to talk with the politicians, but it's the cultural administration. These are partners for the programs and we have to talk with them too, or they have to be involved too, because they do the concrete work, then they set up funding programs and they set up juries, for example. I think it's very important to have more diverse jury teams so that there are more perspectives in the decisions of who gets the funding.
And actually having a more diverse administration. This is also something. They work on that, on the police, but not because they have to, but because they don't find the employees there. So now they are searching in the Turkish community. I mean, that is something that could have happened on beforehand, and that should happen on every level, on communal level, on federal level, searching for the employees to have other voices on these deciding structures too, on every deciding structure in the end.
I would absolutely insist also on all these demands. And, but I think in a certain way it happens already. I think there is a certain sensibilization. I mean, in the Dachverband, just to become a bit concrete, there's now an ethic commission, which is now, which has to start to work, which will giving advice and will be also ready to help for certain questions and to put also into question. And there are now 2 people who become engaged in sensibilization of diversity, and I can name them already because it's Mey Seifan and Fanny Kulisch. So we're very glad that they will join the Dachverband to have an eye on this question. And I think this is one first thing. The second is what I get aware when I was working for the Fonds Darstellende Künste, that this huge amount of money which came from the BKM made possible that a lot more structures, artists and networks could have been supported. And that brought also, I would say, a larger diversity into the field, because people were suddenly funded which never had access for federal money, for example. So there are programs which makes more which opens up a little bit more the gates. So I think there are steps, and of course we have now to see that we try to how to say that, to make them more sustainable and that they are kept also. That that I think might be one of the demands we should have.
That's important. I just want to because I think that's important to know the change of the money systems due to COVID-19, we have to say this, which brought money not only for the dance field, but also for all art forms, also for spoken theater performance and also the visual arts, is something that enabled many artists who have never before. It's a mess what you have to give up, I have to say. It's so many documents in the end, but it's different to beforehand because it's not something that funds results, something that David told me beforehand, that it's always like, just you have to do a production. It's not just project TITIS, it's production at TITIS, I'd say, if you can say that, I don't know. It's not that it's needed the money to have for those processual work forms, to have it and to still leave it on that way. I think that is something that we fought for, that was possible. The Distanzen program, the Stepping Out program, that the Fond d'Archiv, all their hashtag programs, there's so many, and to keep these funding systems, and especially to talk now about this with the new founded political situation in Germany is something we have to do now, because now is the time. I mean, now we practically know who's doing the cultural situation, how it is looking like. I don't know, we don't know really, but practically. So, and we have to talk to these people to keep these programs alive and to further develop them, I'd say.
Yeah, but I would say that there is a certain, there's also a little change in thinking that the products are not only the way, because I think COVID made it very visible that suddenly it can happen that you can't show production, but artistic research, artistic work can continue. Although you can't perhaps show the result, or perhaps there isn't even a result, it's just the way to get there by research or stipendium. I don't know what's the word in German, in English. Yeah, scholarship, yeah. So there are also these kind of options, which I think also could be on the, should be on the action list as well.
Maybe I would like to add for the talking about the fundings. I think one thought could be sometimes funding systems really are dedicated to a target group, and I think this is problematic sometimes, and maybe we have to be more conscious about this. That sometimes if you name a certain group, for example, you say this is a funding program for refugees, for projects with refugees, so you separate the group, and I think we have to go to a kind of a transculturality as a principle in funding programs as well, so that it's not always talking about intercultural dialogue, but it's a kind of a transcultural dialogue, and not to separate groups. So sometimes I have feel not good about, because sometimes it has the taste of a bit of a paternalistic system, and maybe this is something we have to work on, that it becomes more open, more process-orientated, the funding system, and more open in general for all diverse groups who want to apply for projects. And as well, I think it's very important to think about communication, how you communicate about these programs, about these fundings, because sometimes I think that you don't reach everybody, so we have to think about how we communicate, how we spread information, and to find new ways that this information about these possibilities reach everybody, or other people, or more people, or diverse groups. So I think this is a very yeah, it's one of the points I think we should work on.
And make the applications easier, I guess.
Yeah.
It's really sometimes hard. If you're not out of this field, it's really hard to do this still. Because, I mean, I'm just mentioning it because it was talked so much about, and I think it has to be mentioned, is the question of education, the educational system. And I think there were many good ideas which we heard during the last 3 days, starting from going from a very, very elementary age to the children, to include them. I mean, this is what Livia and also Canan explained in their talks. It's sometimes, of course, it should be free will. No one should be forced to dance. I don't know why someone is, but seemingly some are. But sometimes it's it's necessary to have this way, to have a school class together, to find ways to at least reach the children and to support this kind of system, and to start really from a very early age with that, to have a group of youth and group of young people rising up at the moment, to be aware of the opportunity to use dance and to be a dancer, and to not be afraid of dancing and moving, and to really use it to express feelings, express emotions, express yourself, as also André said yesterday, I think, in the morning.
And I think we also should be creative, perhaps, on formats. There's, for example, the format of Klassenzimmerstück, which is one of the focus projects of Vorpommern tanzt an, made by Perform Dance, and they are doing pieces in the classroom. So they can teachers can ask that they provide their classroom, and then the dance piece travels into the classroom, and then there are discussions afterwards, and there's also some packages of information. So this is one idea for example, to bring dance also to school. I mean, apart from all these other projects.
And also to bring dance more into less crowded regions, I say. I mean, it's different to do it in Berlin than...
Yeah. I mean, this is, I think, also something very important, to also to bring dance and also diversity also to the periphery, and not only stay in the metropoles. I think this is also a very crucial subject.
Listening to all these 3 days and all the contribution, and also to all what you are saying, and also the comment in between, you know, when we came out from one panel, there was often a comment, oh, there's so much to do, you know, like so much work to do, and on different topics, and also on different level of possible action plans, you know. And I would say that it's absolutely right what you said, that we have to accept that there is exclusion. And I also would take it a little bit more inside the scene, and also to accept that we also have borders between us, not only towards the outside of the dance scene. And what I mean is not something negative, or maybe we can understand it as something that we should be like, I don't know who said it yesterday, coming closer. You know, when you don't know, it was Adam, I think. To take it as a form of curiosity towards each other. I feel there is so much expertise, but I repeat it again, this expertise is not really used to think about the question, how should the dance society of tomorrow look like? And it's also about how should the world of tomorrow, like, you know, climate, you know, but if we stay into dance, I mean, what kind of production we need, who will make these productions, what kind of dance venues, like a dance venue like Joy was mentioning, a room where everybody can rehearse. In the morning you have performances for school classes, the hierarchy between, you know, performances, dance for adults, dance for young audience. In the evening you had other communities coming, and you have also a place where artists rehearse what kind of venue we need, what kind of founding. And I have the feeling, since discourse raised up, it's true. There's a lot of also progress, you know, but we are still in between. Yesterday was a lot about the in-between people who live in between continents, in between, you know, borders, in between dance style, in between. So maybe it would be good, we don't have the solution now for everything, but to take this, what you said, that the process is also important to be founded, and not only the product. And like an itinerant, you know, itinerant dialogue, something that we can demand that we have the time to answer this question, how should the dance society of tomorrow look? And this should be retributed. It should not be like only one conference, you know, an Arbeitsgruppe, but like a process, you know, and to answer this question with many communities inside the dance world, which don't communicate enough with each other, and also outside, you know? So
I would like to quote yourself, Livia, because I really like this term of the cultural bonding instead of cultural education, because I think this is really something what brings us to the future, because now the pupils dancing in the school, maybe they are the audience of tomorrow, or the artists of tomorrow, or the administrators of cultural funding of tomorrow. So I think this is very important. And I think another point is a very concrete point is really to break the hierarchies in institutions between curation and educate or mediation, because there is in a lot of institutions there is a gap, not just in the dance institutions. I think in the museums there are often a hierarchy. So if it's a topic about diversity, it's always the curators say, okay, that's not bothering me. It's something that the cultural education department has to deal with, the refugees. And no, it's really the whole institution has to transform. And I think this could be really a action plan for the future, really to think about how to structure these relations in a new, or to bring them in a new balance. And I would like to point out just on another point, we talked a lot about dance education. And in the academic field, I think it's really important to open up the canon. That's yeah, for sure, we talked about it. Just wanted to bring an example. For example, in Cologne, in the Center of Contemporary Dance, there is a new professor for dance in a global context. I think this is a very interesting new way to think about dance traditions and about the canon. And I would wish that these kind of scientists are more and more in universities. So that would be a wish for the future for me.
So I think there's some ladies who wants to join us. Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. Want to come up?
And then we can make it more people.
Yeah, we share. Yeah?
Yeah, we are trying to write a list of recommendations. And to see
a recipe?
I don't think we have a recipe, it's just like recommendations.
Yes.
So maybe a point to start with, and then to do a 5 years plan, a 10 years plan, a 50 years plan, some dreams, some, no, 5. We start with 5. 5 is good. We'll achieve everything within 5 years. Yeah, we are trying to gather some concrete ideas. So is it something we can come up maybe with after this session, like to have a written thing to say, these are like kind of recommendations which came out of the symposium, in order, like really my biggest concern is always to break out of this bubble, out of this comfort zone where we are all on the same page. Like I found this really the most difficult thing to achieve, is to go out of these circles. So how to achieve that? Do anyone have a suggestion? Nora.
So, just I want to remind of, we have already 3 demands. One is defunding ballet, which came up yesterday. The other one is to have Black studies departments and maybe a curriculum in the universities. And the third one was to have somebody in charge of diversity and anti-discrimination in each and every dance institution in Germany. Those were not my demands. I'm just copying what Raphael Hillebrand said. And then when I keep repeating the word the demands, which I repeated too much, I start criticizing myself and saying, demands to who?
Good question.
So I start feeling that there is an authority and we're going to demand and make a protest, but instead of thinking in forms of demands, maybe this is what I suggest now, is to think within our power as people who are sitting in this room and sitting online in the Zoom, what can we practically do in a concrete way? And also, how can this be achieved not only over 3-5 years or whatever, but how can it be achieved through institutional alliances? So it means that we really assume responsibility for achieving what we demand, and we achieve it by ourselves without forgetting the necessity to talk to politicians, to the government, and all this. And I'm, of course, also imagining that maybe we can, in a kind of constellation or structure, discuss how to implement those actions in a strategic way. So this is what I thought of saying.
Yes, I'm writing.
Ja. What is my demand? Also für mich, es gibt viel Stelle. Ich habe nur einfach Entschuldigung, wenn ich rede immer mit Beispielen, weil es ist ein bisschen für mich zu erklären, weil ich arbeite viel mit Bildern und so. Ich habe eine Frage, das ist immer diese Frage, für wen machen wir Kunst? Das ist wichtig. Für wen bin ich Curator? Für wen bin ich Geschäftsführer für Förderung? Für wen bin ich Leitung Festival? Für wen bin ich Geschäftsführer zum Beispiel für den Paktzollverein? Und zur anderen Seite ist, wenn ich bekomme einen Brief von dem Finanzamt, das ist ein Bilder, ich bin immer genervt. Ihr weißt, was bedeutet das? Ich bekomme einen Brief, David Kono, du musst von bis schriftlich und das und das und das zu uns geben. Sonst du bekommst meinen kostet. Und man sagt in Deutschland, wenn du bezahlst deine Steuer, du hast Recht. Und später, wenn ich gehe beim Arbeit, im Theater oder im Tanz und so, es kommt immer Diversität. Aber warum es gibt keine Diversität beim Steuer zu bezahlen? Warum gibt es diese Diversität jetzt mit Kunst? Also wenn ich lebe in Deutschland, deswegen ich sage, für wen machen wir Kunst? Wenn wir sagen, wir sind alle in Deutschland, dass wir bezahlen Steuer, das heißt, jeder muss was sehen. Und ohne dieses Format Diversität, schwarz und weiß oder Migration-Hintergrund, weil Migration-Hintergrund, wir kreieren auch nochmal diesen dritten Raum. Weil es gibt schon einen ersten Raum, dass die Kinder, die Eltern, dass sie sind in Deutschland geboren, zum Beispiel, ich gucke das auch viel mit den Türken, sie sind seit in Deutschland irgendwie 3. oder 4. Generation. Man hat ihn sofort so ausgedrückt, Eltern konnten nicht in Deutschland schaffen, also sie hat seine Wünsche über die Kinder. Und die Kinder auch, wurde auch unterdrückt. Und jetzt plötzlich in Deutschland, man sagt Diversität und alle kann schaffen, was sie kann. Und zu dieser Seite ist er, okay, ihr gebt Chance zu diesen Kindern. Seine Eltern konnten nicht das machen und jetzt Kinder konnten das machen. Aber Kinder weiß nicht, wer er ist. Und das ist sehr gefährlich, weil es kommt jetzt in dieser dritten Raum, das Deutschland mag gerade. Weil ich als Diaspora, ich komme aus Deutschland, ich arbeite in Deutschland, wir konfrontieren die ganze Tag dagegen. Ja, das ist, also was ich irgendwie Trauma und genervt die ganze Zeit und sage, okay, über wem oder wie können wir so das lösen, nicht lösen, also es gibt keine Lösung, nur einfach eine Form zu kreieren, damit wir können zusammen und nicht mehr denken über Grenzen, was du hast gesagt, über nur Deutschland, aber nicht mehr Deutschland, weil es gibt kein Deutschland mehr. Ich liebe die Zeit Corona. Ich sage, ich bin keine Kameruner, weil ich bin in Kamerun erwachsen mit dem Ersten Welt- und Zweiten Weltkrieg, mit Hitler. Es ist schwer in Deutschland darüber zu sprechen. Aber ich bin mit dieser Geschichte aufgewachsen. Und wenn ich kommt hier, es ist ein Blockus, um zu reden. Das heißt, deswegen ich sage zu Ende, ich bin keine Kameruner. Ich bin ein Mensch in dieser ganzen Globalwelt. Wenn wir denken an die Globalwelt, wenn wir denken über diese Meinung von, für wen machen wir Kunst? Oder jeder Curator kann denken, warum soll ich dieses Festival kuratiert? Warum soll ich dieser Haus leiten? Ich glaube, wenn diese Frage kommt, es wäre ein erster Punkt, auf diese Lösung zu finden.
Thing. But from this experience of seeing how power works and knowing moments from just 1 year ago, we had something here within the Dachverband, how if there would have been a diversity agent that has power and just power to stop things or to say we are allowed to make a public announcement of saying this and that behavior is unacceptable for us, then this would have changed the whole process that we are in. I just want to say I'm a little bit confused because your face is gone now and I cannot talk to you anymore like I was before, but I probably think you still see me. So it's one tool, but it's not the perfect tool, just like quotas are. But we have to start somewhere, and we have to start with concrete shifts and how to share power and give it to other people, and we cannot at all keep it in the abstract in the sense of the leadership just in generally wants to be diverse. This we tried for many decades and they wanted to, but we need to be concrete. And I'm not going to let you sit on the floor. I get you a chair.
I want to say something. I want to sit on the floor. I'm doing it on purpose. So that the camera maybe has to look at me. I am below the... But I don't want to give you a hard time. I apologize. I just want to go back to this and why we need a diversity person. Because if we fight structural racism and structural discrimination, we need to fight it with structural equality and equity. And that means that we need to implement actions, we need to implement people who have the discourse, who have the knowledge, who have the journey of sufferance to speak for themselves and to be there. So it doesn't mean that we bring a representative who solves the problem. We have this representative, and then this representative also carries all the blame at the end. This is not correct. It is just one tiny action, a step to infiltrate the structural injustice and to try and change it from inside while being accompanied by other actions. And if it is not accompanied by other actions, it doesn't mean anything. It contributes to, again, beautifying the power system.
And I would like to add, also that it helps perhaps also to sensibilize every individual, because I think there it starts. I mean, we all have to get aware of this structural racism and perhaps also the racist thinking in ourselves. So I think it can help, and this is also a bit the idea, to become more sensibilized. And for me, it doesn't mean that I give away my my responsibility, but perhaps there's a person who's helping me a little bit also to get more aware. So this is also, I think, the idea.
I can also add to that, since I am that person now. Hallo. Yeah, I mean, I am now the Referentin für Diversität für Dachverband für Tanz, and I will start in December. I thought a lot. You're happy, no? One event, we did it already. You can put it out of the list.
When she becomes a diversity officer, I can sit.
Oh, this is my first achievement, so I'm so happy for that. I thought a lot about it, if I would like to apply for this position, and then I read what was wanted from that person, and happily I read it after kind of like I was convinced to do that. So when I read it, I was like, I don't know if I can do that, but yeah, I can do a lot actually. But I thought a lot of this, do we need someone who is a Referentin für Diversität? And I also work a lot, for example, as an activist with the Syrian community, for women's rights, for all of that, within the Syrian community. And there's always the question, do we need a woman quota at anything, at a new party or whatever? Do we need the 30% and then to go over and until to reach the point where we do not need it? There was a lot of discussions about it. The answer after a lot of discussions was yes. It is not ideal, it is not very good that we need to have that position. Of course, the ideal thing is that we do not need it. But exactly as Nora said, since there is a systematic racism and also it is just there. People sometimes, they just don't feel it. They don't mean it bad. Sometimes it's just like a question out of curiosity. It's sometimes also, I catch myself asking stupid questions to people from the LGBTQI community because I don't have the codes sometimes, or I want to learn, but then sometimes my questions are offending them. Yeah? And then I also have to learn. I do not mean to offend them, but sometimes a question is offending, but I don't have that cue sometimes. So I think it is important for a start. I hope after our 5 years, we will not need it anymore. So anyway, it is Stelle only for 2 years, so I hope after 2 years you will not need me anymore. And yeah, and that is the goal, that diversity is a working environment. It is not anything to achieve, it is not a goal, it is really a working environment and enrichment. Yeah. Rajayashri wanted to say something, and then we will take Mahosi. I hope this was an answer, I don't know. We'll go to Raja.
Thank you. This is a very, very important topic that is being discussed. What is needed and what is not needed. And I just want to bring you all back to what we started the symposium with. That is Deutungshoheit, you would say in German. Who is talking about diversity and whose problem is it? And it is about giving the persons who are actually involved and affected by it the voice. And I think that was the starting point. It is accessibility and visibility, as the title says. So I just want to remind that. That means it is not about whether we have a gremium, a separate gremium or not. It is about who is sitting finally over there.
Sit with us. Sit with us.
That's okay. This round is not what matters. It is who is sitting in that and who is going to talk for these people.
Please.
And that is what it is about,
I will not accept it if you refuse my invitation.
This is an Arabic invitation. You cannot refuse. I'm telling you, she's Egyptian. You cannot do this.
I just want to remind you of that, so that we don't go into this discussion about whether it is necessary or not. It is not that. It is about who is going to talk for whom. And the Deutungshoheit stays with the people who are affected. And I think this is what the symposium showed, with all the different voices that came, and all the different, yes, we are sitting in the bubble. We all have the same experiences. And we are having this feeling, oh yes, we all share those experiences. And we have to get out of this bubble as well. But still, we have to get out of it collectively. With the same Deutungshoheit, that means we are going to talk about our problems. And we want to see that it is carried forward, and we need partners who will listen to us. And we need that finger in the administration, like you said. The politicians come and go, but it's the administration that is sitting permanently. Staatssekretär, God knows what, Kulturdirektor, they're the ones who are sitting over there permanently. So we need that finger in there. But who's representing us is also a matter. And I think I would like to just keep ourselves, reminding about that.
Since it wasn't a question, I start with another input. I'm seeing in Germany so much potential of urban dance artists that in other countries get to lead or institutions, or like Storm, he becomes a professor in Austria now. Wang Ramirez, the associate artist of the Théâtre de Paris, Théâtre de Ville in Paris, but not in Berlin. And I see that this huge potential, and from my perspective in urban dance, there's so much tools and already lived culture that doesn't solve the diversity problem, but has answers to it, and answers that will come from life and from life experience, and we are wasting it. It's not included, and I don't get how come that in France we have like 5-6 choreographic centers run by people who come from the urban dance culture, and that works well. And in Germany, people cannot even think about it. Now that Tanzhaus NRW was open for a new leader, it would have been logic for me. If there's a house in Germany that is run by an urban art dancer or urban expert or someone who comes from it, then it should be that house. And people don't even, there's not even a discussion really about it. And I'm quite shocked. So we're collecting demands. I'm demanding that there's more urban dance expertise on the level of leadership, that we don't let all these experts go away, far away to other places where they get better paid, but we actually just build institutions, and those institutions will be way more inclusive than institutions of trying to keep the contemporary canon, or at all aim at it from the contemporary perspective, I think. We can still do this, but I would also really make a strong pitch of giving a little bit of all this dance funding into the urban dance field to not be dependent on gatekeepers. Because there's all, like from my experience, I cannot do a piece, a workshop, maybe at Renegade, but most other places I'm dependent on gatekeepers that don't come out of the same cultural reference.
Yes, and I want to demand that before we leave this building, we have a date for our meeting to decide how to create maybe this roadmap for a change. And it means to become concrete, and also to find a way as soon as possible to publish all this symposium video, and also maybe a draft of our last discussion specifically as the seed for this maybe roadmap gathering or encounter or plan or whatever.
I already have a place and a time. I will let you, I can also announce it now if you want. But whoever wants to join can do that. On the 7th of November, I'll give you more details, but whoever is willing to join, let us know. I would be more than happy in Berlin.
Yes, and I think it would be good to think about money. And that is not just stays like a vague plan as a roadmap. I think we need, I think, is like Raphael just said, I can say the same about the knowledge and the answer from people working, you know, with performances for young audience or in schools. We have some answers to the question of access, you know. And I think there's many people in what we heard also from the audience, and also from the pain, like Nora said, you have to give voice. There's also answer there, and it's an old question. You know, now we call it diversity, but it's an old question. So maybe now we come to the point that we can try to find solutions, and I think we need to exchange between us, but it should be strategic, and it should be paid. You know, this process, you know, it's not just about coming and exchanging and talking a little bit and going apart, and then everybody feels good because now we have a nice symposium about diversity. Sorry, I'm being a little bit mean. But then, you know, we have a lot of organization here. We have a lot of money, you know, for dance. So I think this process should be, you know, taken serious, should be financiated, and should be a longer one, you know, to include really different perspectives. And, you know, and I want to say thank you to Nora. It's a personal thank you, because, you know, I have a long run with her since this first conference of dance and racism and the other body, and I learned so much, and it gave me also the courage to to express myself differently, and she collects also all these people together, you know, to make this symposium, and you know, and Mey and David and everybody, and I really want to thank you for your yes. So. Thank you, Nora. Make an applause,
Livia! Oh my God, it's spreading, it's spreading, it's so lovely. I want to say one more thing, just it doesn't match with the applause actually, but maybe, I want to say that whatever will happen in those discussions or in this roadmap or in the meeting that Mey just announced, I feel it would be very, very positive if it is binding for those who participate in it. I'm sorry if it sounds too much to ask, but that what we reach is binding, is institutionally binding. Binding.
I mean,
bounding. Bind. How you say? Obligatory to achieve. Because I have the experience that we can talk for years. Because I've been sitting in meetings and talking since I was 11 years old with my mother, like with you and your mother, and like with a lot of mothers we heard about in this symposium. And I don't want my daughter to sit in the same meetings for the next 30 years, at least, huh?
Totally. I also have small two demands. One is to write the announcement of all applications and grants in English, please, and also to accept applications in English. Please, 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 please. We cannot work with international artists in the dance field. The language of the dance field is, bitteschön, English. It's not German. So please, all the dance institutions in Germany, please allow this. And the jury should read English, because if you do not read English, then you're not international. I'm sorry, but then you are just not international. If you cannot, as a dancer and as a jury member, cannot read English, this means that your readings also is limited by the German one. So please, English and English and English. The second one also we had out of many meetings we did at the LAFT from the International Working Artists, and we want to put out the work in Berlin. When you have to prove or to show 3 of your works during the 5 years, please put in Berlin out, because there are also international artists, wonderful artists who just arrived to Berlin, so they don't have to wait 5 years in order to get a proper support, funding.
Like
exactly.
Rajyashri had to wait several years.
Yes, but because now, till now, it is there, the word in Berlin. So it was also, we had also many meetings of that. We did some comments, so let's see. And I also suggest an Austauschprogramm zwischen directors of institutions, so that they do like all these TV very much funded shows of changing moms and so on. Can we please change, like do an exchange programs between directors of institutions, so someone would go to an institution in the Arabic world or in Asia or something else and see how stiff, please, how stiff these regulations are, and there are other ways of doing stuff. This is also what Mahosi was saying. Now, I am rich, I know how to do stuff, I just do it in another way. And it doesn't mean that my way is not a right way. So please do some exchange and get to know also other cultures and other ways of doing stuff. So I would also like to see that on TV, please. Then I will open my TV and have something nice to watch.